SeizeYourBusiness.com podcast with Tony Rourke and Kevin O'Flaherty.
SeizeYourBusiness.com, making you money.
Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn,
Twitter, our blog, YouTube videos, listen to our podcast, getting so hot that it's burning up the stereo.
All right, welcome to the SeizeYourBusiness.com podcast. My name is Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law, and I'm joined today by my guest, Jim Elliott from Diveheart. So thanks for your time today, Jim.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here and share the Diveheart story. Thanks.
I know you're a busy guy, so it means a lot to have you on this podcast. So tell us what Diveheart is and how you got into it.
Well, Diveheart is a nonprofit, a 501c3, and we're based right here in downtown Downers Grove. It got started, really, my blind daughter inspired me back when I was at WGN Radio. She was struggling with being blind, and I was trying to get her involved in something to make her feel good about herself. She had thrown down her cane and didn't want to learn Braille, and because she could technically read a 2-inch letter kind of right by her right eye. And so one of the announcers, Floyd Brown at WGN, said basically, you got to check out this ski program. So got her downhill skiing, and after a couple weeks, people, she'd say, what'd you do this weekend, Aaron? And she'd say, well, I went skiing. And they'd be like, yeah, sure, you went skiing. You're blind. How do you do that? And she'd say, no, here's the pictures. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, my God, that is so cool. You're blind and you ski. How do you do that? And it went from, there was this paradigm shift. It went from Aaron the blind kid to Aaron the skier. And she excelled then in grade school, middle school, high school, won awards, got scholarships. And I blame it on the skiing, right? So I've been guiding and teaching blind skiers since the 80s. And watching this transformation happen over and over and over again. And I took scuba diving back in college because I thought if I ever meet Jacques Cousteau, I was a journalism major, and I better know how to, scuba dive. So I took it and fell in love with it because it's the closest thing on earth that a human being can experience to being an astronaut. Right. And it's a whole lot cheaper because you can get in a swimming pool and do it.
Sure.
So, and that's really the heavy lifting that we do. So I left the 6-figure income in the media business. I was at the Tribune, WGN, helped start up CLTV News, and said, if I screw up, I'm young enough, I can always go back. I incorporated Diveheart in 2001. So we've been, knock on wood, been doing very well, growing. We help facilitate adaptive scuba programs around the world. So I teach instructors to work with people with disabilities. We also do research. We do here in town, we work with Midwestern University, and we did the world's first study on autism and scuba therapy.
Really?
Yeah, pressure is a therapy for kids with autism. They have the weighted blankets and the pressure vests, and water, when you go underwater, it's inherently hyperbaric. So as you go down, pressure increases. It eliminates surface distraction. So a kid with autism, I've seen them be almost inaudible where I didn't think they really spoke, and they're going, like that. And then after like 20 minutes underwater, just in a shallow pool, they come up and they're like, I'd really like to try to do this again if it's okay. And I'm like, oh, wow, is that the same kid? And then the benefits, the study showed the benefits at home are tremendous for the, not only for the self-esteem, but also just the way they track and focus and stuff like that. But self-esteem's a lot, and communication, and stuff like that. And being able to say you do something somebody else doesn't do is cool too. And then we just recently, we're down in Fort Lauderdale, and I brought a couple newspapers. I brought the Sun Sentinel. We were on the cover of the Sun Sentinel and the Miami Herald on Wednesday last week, and we had veterans with disabilities doing coral reef restoration. So we're trying to...
So they're actually restoring the coral. They're actually kind of working down there. And wow. Yeah. We work win-win-win-win.
It is. We work with Nova University down there and an organization called Dive Bar Attorneys, who are scuba divers. You'll appreciate that.
Wow. All right.
And we're their charity of choice. So we all got together. We trained up all the vets. We trained up all the buddies and stuff, got them in the water. And then the marine science guys from Nova showed them how to do the coral reef restoration and replanting and all that stuff. And it was awesome. And we made the cover of these two newspapers, and then an Associated Press type of news service picked it up, and it kind of went viral. It was in Stars and Stripes and in Military Times and all sorts of military publications because the guys were vets. My particular diver was a triple amputee. He was an Air Force bomb demolition guy, and he lost both legs and his left arm at the elbow. But underwater, once you get them neutrally buoyant, you want to find that sweet spot so they have their astronaut moment where when they breathe in, they go up, and they exhale, they go down. then they're totally independent. So we had a signal where if he wanted me to hold on to his tank, because of course with one arm it's hard to propel yourself through the water, he would go like this with the one hand he had, and I would take his tank valve and swim him through the water. And then when he wanted to be independent, he would go like this, and I would release him, but stay close enough to react in case there was a problem. And then he would move through the water, to the best of his ability. So that's very cool.
So what other major projects are you working on right now?
We're doing the research. One of our teams went with John Hopkins, down to the Cayman Islands, found there's an extra output of serotonin in the human body that helps with pain management, anxiety. And actually in the pilot study, it alleviated 80% of the veterans' PTSD symptoms. They had 12 vets down with them. And to me, that's humongous. I mean, a vet is committing suicide once every 65 minutes in this country. And to me, what we want to do, and that's to build a deep warm water facility so we can replicate some of the serotonin output, but some of the other benefits that we're seeing. Anecdotally, we've just seen it help individuals with traumatic brain injuries and any kind of pain. It's going to be awesome because there's no gravity. So you're in warm water, and then you have no gravity, so you're getting physical therapy and zero gravity, and it's really going to be exciting. I think we're going to revolutionize rehabilitation as we know it, and that's why Midwestern's so excited. Their occupational and physical therapy departments are like so behind us. It's crazy.
So that pool would be unique in the world, right? If you can get that done.
Yeah, I have a friend that built a pool 10 years ago in Brussels, and it's called Nemo 33, and it's 33 meters deep. 33 Celsius, so it's a warm pool too. But he wasn't thinking about anybody with disabilities. He built it 3 stories above grade, where you enter the pool without an elevator. So if you're in a wheelchair, somebody's got to carry you up 3 stories, and then it goes down like a water tower sleeve. So you can't put a lot of people in there. You got to have awesome buoyancy to be able to hover and stop in midwater. And we want therapists to be able to stop on a ledge and do research and work with enriched air, like 50% or 100% oxygen instead of 21, like the oxygen we're breathing now in the air, and start to measure stuff so that by the time the facility's built, we're kind of helped facilitate becoming the foremost authority on physical therapy and zero gravity with Midwestern and other therapists and stuff. And Tammy Duckworth is supposed to get us in front of the folks at Blue Cross Blue Shield, because eventually we'll be billing insurance companies. I mean, there'll be a code for scuba therapy, just like there is for aqua therapy or any kind of therapy, sitting on, going to ATI down the street here and doing stuff.
Now, excuse my ignorance, but Tammy Duckworth's a senator, right? Or is she a House?
She's running for Senate. Okay. Yeah, running for Senate. Yeah, we try to stay out of politics, but I
do my best to do that too.
Yeah, she's been good to us. She was the Department of Veterans Affairs director. We got her in the water first time after she was shot down in Iraq, and she was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. Lost both of her legs, right at the hip, left at the knee, and then they put her arm back together pretty good, but she only has about 50% use of her right arm. Big advocate for vets as we are. We've gotten a couple grants from the Department of Veterans Affairs and have done the Wounded Warrior Scuba programs at Camp Pendleton, Fort Knox, Fort McCoy, Fort Lewis, Tampa, VA. Great, we have 5 veterans in the water next week, Wednesday the 8th. At Doubletree Hotel, our friend Dan Techman's hotel in Downers Grove. And we're going to have 5 veterans from Jesse Brown, VA, which is right downtown. It'll be their first time to get in the water and stuff. So, but the heavy lifting we do is in swimming pools. It's not running off to the Caribbean all the time.
Although it sounds like you're doing that a fair amount too.
We have in the summer, because the kids are off school, we take young people with disabilities down to the Florida Keys and just work with awesome vendors that just give us unbelievable deals, and so that we're able to do more stuff. And then we go out of the country to Cozumel. We have a trip in December. We usually do one in May. And I trained all the instructors at the and dive masters at the #1 dive operation in Cozumel, Dive Paradise. And we send people there. We just sent a kid from Chicago there whose parents got certified to dive with him. And that's what we want to do, is replicate that, where they can be independent. It's something they all can do underwater that's physical and exciting and bonding and stuff. It's very cool.
So you left your job, your 6-figure income, and just started this. And
I did, yeah.
I know that you've been very understaffed ever since you've had this thing going. But you're on CNN, you're on national media outlets, and you've really gotten the word out, and you're helping a lot of people. How does one guy go from, I have this idea, to being able to help the number of people that you're helping and get the message out? Tell me a little bit about that story.
Well, leaving the job was tough. I laid in bed 2 days looking at the ceiling going, what the heck did I do? That was a great idea. But I didn't think it was going to be anything. I thought it was going to be like the blind ski group I was with. I thought I was going to be doing some stuff in pools, doing a little bit in the summer at the quarry, and maybe doing a couple trips a year or something like that. But I had no idea that we were going to be doing this research, that we had no idea that we were going to see intuitively, I knew there was going to be benefits. You get a guy out of a wheelchair and get him in the water, and it's going to be good for him, just circulation and oxygenation of tissue and all that.
But you were focused mostly on the self-esteem, getting
confidence, independence.
What your daughter got from the skiing experience.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to replicate that. And then I had no idea we would be wanting to build a facility, but we were talking about the Brussels, friend in Brussels, and then the Italians built a 137-foot pool last year. And we were going to build a 40-foot pool and went to Heinz VA in 2010, and the proposal went all the way to Washington, D.C. It languished in Washington and went nowhere, but it was good because it was only a 40-foot pool. So we put renderings. Perkins and Will is on our team, Case Construction, Schiff Harden, all sorts of really first top-level construction and people, Prism Consulting for the medical side. And we put a lot of our ideas out there about this facility is going to be for research, rehabilitation, education, training, and to provide vocational opportunities for individuals, not just with disabilities, but all abilities. And Sir Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Airlines, is behind a project now that they're talking about in the UK. And the renderings look a whole lot like the ones that we've had out there for a 40-foot pool. So
you're doing stuff that's beyond that.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're talking about research and stuff, and they're the first ones besides us are talking about a deep water pool for this research and stuff. So we're excited that other people are seeing this, and we're using that to motivate our team here because it's a $100 million project. I mean, if it's $1, and that's not easy to get, but if you have the right people in the room, it is. I mean, Bill Gates is a Rotarian like us, and he's a diver, big diver. Paul Allen's a big diver. I mean, if we can get in front of some of those guys, that's the goal, is to do that. And we're working on it, and we're getting audiences with some pretty cool people, and that have, friends who know people, and, we're just.
So what have you been doing to get those audiences and get in front of those people to raise these funds?
It's funny when you just ask people, like, for example, Martell Sound in Hollywood, they do all the movie trailers for Disney. And they're one of our donors and one of our volunteers. And Maria Martell, I said to her, we just need someone to help us shine a light on what we do. Mm-hmm. And once people realize, way less than 1% of the population of the world scuba dives, and everybody in the dive industry, way less than 1% of the population do what we do. And of all the people that do what we do, we're absolutely leading cutting edge, innovative stuff. But I told her, I said, we want to shine a light on what we do. And she says, well, let me talk to one of my employees. He's like best friends with Keanu Reeves. So I'm looking up Keanu Reeves' bio on Google, and it's like, oh my God, he gave away $80 million of his $110 million Matrix fortune to charity and stuff. And I'm
really?
Like, oh my God.
No one knows that about Keanu Reeves.
No.
He's the punchline to a lot of jokes. And
yeah. Oh, apparently what a giving guy. So this friend of his, best friend from grade school, I guess, said, yeah. Oh, he'd love to do something like that. So we said, we just don't want a donation. We'd like you to be an ambassador and help get us in front of the right people. You get the right people in the room, and $100 million is not a lot of money.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it seems like a lot to me, but yeah, I guess if with people that are giving away $80 million to charity, you get a couple of those and you can put something together. Yeah. So you wanted to talk about taking lemons and making lemonade a little bit.
This was my first nonprofit to start up, and knock on wood, it's going in the right direction. And in fact, I didn't have any idea that it would be as incredible as it is. And one of the philosophies I always, and this is probably my PR background and journalist background, is taking lemons and making lemonade, basically. So when something bad happens in business, it's being able to not let it cripple you. to identify, stop for a second, take a deep breath and go, wow, that hurt, and say, okay, this is not going to take us down. How can we spin it? And immediately start making a checklist of all the, Benjamin Franklin used to have a pros and cons sheet, on a piece of paper, draw a line down the center, and here's the upside, here's the downside, and just kind of go through it and say, what can I do to do this? And I would, a lot of times when we get a lot of publicity, if something happens that's negative, a lot of times you can take that, and when you embrace it and you own up to it and you go forward and go, yeah, you know what? If you're a company, yeah, you know what? Our product did hurt someone, or we did, accidentally do this or whatever. And, we own up to it, and we're facing it and take it and turn it into a positive, and people will respect you for that. And
do you have an example of a time that you've turned a negative into a positive like that?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Yeah, and I was thinking about it when you asked me that. We did. We had a guy who was kind of disgruntled and just kind of a malcontent, and we had to ask him to leave the organization. And when we launched our training program last year, we went out there on the internet and on a forum called Scuba Board, which is the big dive forum. He kind of got out there and started beating us up about it and asking very pointed questions, because we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 to start with, but this is a component of what we do. It's training. We're doing research with researchers. We want to build a facility. We want to do training as well to make sure people know the adaptive dive team protocols and all this innovative stuff that we've developed. And he was saying, well, are you a training agency? And he wanted us to basically call ourselves a training agency instead of having that be part of what we do. And he wanted to do that so that he could really go out to what he saw as our competition, which is really the other major training agencies out there, and say, look it, they're competing with you and stuff like that. And we had some really great people come to our aid. In fact, the guy who runs Scuba Board kind of said, look, pal, you need to, and I just kind of stayed on the high road with the conversation, even though it kind of got in the gutter a little bit, and really just with the help of some friends, was able to turn this around. It turned out to be one of the largest forums. I don't know how they measure that, but that's about my pay grade.
So like a big conversation.
Big, and a lot of people followed it. And that created awareness for our program. And what started out to be a negative, instead of saying, oh, God, this guy's trying to throw us under the bus, was to go out and embrace it and own it and be honest with everyone and say, well, we don't teach scuba diving. We don't. Patty and Nowie and some of these other training agencies, we use their materials. You have to, if you're one of our instructors, you have to be a certified instructor with a regular training agency first. We just teach the adaptive dive team protocols, how to work safely with a child with autism or Down syndrome or an amputee or cerebral palsy or whatever it is, and keep them safe underwater and give them some independence. And then when you're working with researchers, keep that team safe as well. So that's one example, yeah.
The lemons and the lemonade thing reminds me of the line, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right, exactly.
It's an opportunity. I find that in my business, if everything's floating along just fine, a lot of my employees aren't necessarily receptive to change.
Right.
But if you've got something that happens, a mistake was made with a client, or, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but if you have something go wrong, then it's an opportunity to reevaluate what you're doing, address it, and have some organizational change. Because then you've got, if anyone questions, hey, why are you trying to, make me fill out this new spreadsheet or come to this extra meeting that I didn't have to go to? Well, we had this client complaint, we had one thing go wrong, and now we need to address it. And that's my reasoning for making this change. And it gives you kind of almost a moral authority to make changes that need to be made within the organization.
The situation, puts you gives you an opportunity, you're right, to do things you couldn't have done otherwise. And we've had to do some personnel changes as well. And you're right, that's a great opportunity to bring on new people and have conversations with people. Yeah.
So what are some of the things from your PR background that's something that you've managed to really leverage with this whole thing? For someone who's not in a media PR background, what are some tips that you can give to people?
Well, I was thinking about that when you were just saying goodbye to your earlier guests, because it just kind of occurred to them to take your podcast and share that with their clients. And just like companies will hire Michael Jordan, for example, in his day, and they still do, they want that association with a winner. And I think any time that you can have, you have a positive piece, like NBC Nightly News did a piece on us, and Brian Williams introduced it. And Brian's had some issues lately, and I use that as an opportunity to when I present to Rotary clubs, or I present to medical professionals all over the world. We're doing a grand rounds. In fact, at the Rehab Institute of Chicago in August. Presented at Duke, a couple years ago, and in Boston last year to 1,000 medical professionals. And we take these pieces and they're evergreen, and they're beautiful. You capture them, you put them someplace on your website or share them somehow with a link, and then you have a bunch of arrows in your quiver. And when it's Autism Month, I roll out the WGN Medical Report on autism. And I say, did you realize that pressures of therapy and blah, 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 or do you know someone who has a child with autism? And introduce that piece, and then have a link if you want to find out more. If something, that's a great one. Traumatic brain injuries. We have another WGN Medical Report on traumatic brain injuries, and whatever's in the news. I just saw on one of the networks, they were talking about a veteran committing suicide every 65 seconds or 65 minutes. Yeah. So just over an hour, a veteran commits suicide. And to me, the study that Johns Hopkins did with our team in Cayman with veterans with post-traumatic stress disorders, like 80% of the symptoms were alleviated. And if this is the conversation out there now, how do we stop these guys from committing suicide? Let's get them deep in warm water. And you can't run to the Keys and you can't run to Cozumel all the time to do this, to be in open water. And you're dealing with, weather, and you're dealing with, water movement, currents, and all sorts of stuff that makes it, inhospitable sometimes to dive. That's why we need a deep confined pool. And we don't want one, we want 4. One for vocational stuff. We can't have a steel cutting and welding and stuff going on in a big tank. We put that in a demonstration tank. But you walk in, imagine going to the aquarium and everything's glass, 33 feet would be above grade. And you'd have these 4 magnificent pools where you'd be able to see your loved ones go through research and rehab, and, your child or your loved one or your sibling that just got back from Afghanistan or Iraq or something, and watch them go through this healing process. And we're finding from researchers from University of or Illinois School of Psychology that first pool session is off the charts paradigm shift. It's like, oh my God, and the 5th or 10th doesn't proportionately increase. The first one is a real game changer, and we see that all the time.
So if someone is listening to this podcast and it's hard not to hear what you're doing and not want to help out, what are the best ways that they can, be of service to Diveheart? What are some ways that someone who might be listening can help you out?
Well, helping us shine a light on it. So going to diveheart.org, sharing some of the stories. We're trying to get out of the fundraising business. We're trying to have other people paint our fence, like Tom Sawyer, right? Sure. And we've been this year's been pretty good. Keep my fingers crossed. How are
you doing that? How are you getting other people to paint your fence?
We're putting it out there. We're asking them. We're just saying, we don't want to be spending all these hours planning a golf outing. We want to help people with disabilities. Would you hold a golf outing in our name? Would you make us? Okay. Would you make us your charity of choice? I mean, whether you're watching a Hawks game and doing a split the pot and sending a check for $50, or you're doing a golf outing. Our golf outing, we could never get more than 40 golfers, for 10 years. Yeah. And then finally, we just gave it to a guy who runs an aerospace company in Tampa. He had 150 golfers. It's like, but he had the tools. He had a sales force. He had a company. He had vendors. I mean, it's business golf then at that point. It's a justification. It's, a lot of divers are not golfers necessarily. So
you could use people to help you raise funds, throw events.
Raise funds, share our story. Make us their charity of choice would be great. We're a resource, so send people to look at our calendar at diveheart.org. Send people to some of our events. Come check us out. The most powerful thing that we could do. I had Rotarians from Israel hear about us, came up to me at the Montreal Rotary Conference, and saw an article that ran in the Rotarian magazine and said, we want you to come and do this in Haifa. So I went there, and we did a program for kids with autism, but I worked with Rotarians. But it's, being able to just kind of leverage the resources and share exponentially. I mean, the thing we have to manage is really not taking on too many programs. What we're trying to do is inspire people to do more. And we've done programs in China, Australia, Israel, the UK, all over the Caribbean, hundreds of cities around the U.S., and we've spun off 20 other nonprofits. So, we've done a lot of stuff, but we want to, now that we have our own training materials, we want to have people, we want to send it to, our new instructor in San Francisco or something like that.
So it's almost like a franchise. The nonprofit can open up and use your training materials and have a ready-made charity that they can use.
Yeah, they can use them. I'm hoping that the materials are used by someone who will never train with us. So, for example, someone sees it in Bora Bora, and he'll never make it to a Diveheart training because he can't afford it, right? But the indigenous population of Bora Bora, people have disabilities. Mm-hmm. So he reads the materials, he goes through the online training, and he adapts for his community. Even though he's not certified to do it, he's a scuba instructor, and he can do it in his. We're not even talking. I mean, we're not chasing the dive industry. We're chasing the medical industry. So if you know anybody in medicine, that's who we want. The therapists and docs and rehab folks. That's who we want to be in front of and talking to, because this is going to revolutionize rehabilitation. And our ultimate goal is to have people imagine the possibilities in their life. It's not about scuba diving even. We're using zero gravity. Horse therapy and rock climbing and wheelchair basketball are great activities and great therapies in some cases. But we have the franchise on zero gravity. So I intend on using it to change the world, and so far it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's amazing what you've accomplished. You're you say people want to be associated with a winner. I mean, I think you've made your organization magnetic, where you've gotten the snowball rolling, and everyone wants to be a part of that and help out. Everyone that I know anyway. And it's really amazing what you've done. Really impressed, Jim.
Well,
how can people reach you if they want to help out?
Diveheart.org is the easiest way, probably. info at diveheart.org goes right to the office. And then our phone number is 630-964-1983. And I answer it all the time. Yeah. So
thanks so much for your time today, Jim. It's an honor having you here.
Thank you. Honor to be here.